good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Thank you for joining us for our April Fireside Chat. I'm excited to be back with you this month, and I'm hosting the incredible Chidiebere Ibe. And I was just joking with him. I'm like, the Nigerian fanatics may not come out just absolutely right, but I did give it my best shot. I'm so excited to host him. I have been following his career for a really, really long time, and I'm just absolutely amazed by everything that he's doing. And today we're going to be talking about representation in medical illustrations and why that matters. But before we dive into all of that, I want to give just a brief bio of who Chidiebere is, and then we'll dive into all of the great things that we have conversation about today. So he is a TEDx speaker and medical student, Nigerian medical illustrator, and a professional among the few in Africa. He is the founder of Championing Change in Africa and Project Create, the creative director at the Young Continental Association of African Neurosurgeon Societies, and creative director of chief medical illustrator of the Journal of Global Neurosurgery. Okay. The Journal of Global Neurosurgery. I'm just going to put a plug on that and then we're going to come back to that. He is also a junior committee member of the World Federation of Neurosurgical Society, global neurosurgeon, and medical illustrator at the International Center for Genetic Diseases, Harvard Medical School. Chidiebere is passionate about contemporary illustration of Black patients and has been acclaimed globally for creating the Black fetus illustration. He aspires to be an obstetrician and gynecologist. So Chidiebere, welcome to our Fireside Chat. So honored to have you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mercy, for taking the time to read my bio, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we a lot of the times we come to know people, their LinkedIn profiles, their bios are exceptional and all of these great things, but I always like to take us back to where it all started. So tell us, where did you start? Who's Chidiebere? Where did you grow up? How have you come up in life, and what has inspired you to take the trajectory that you've taken?
Yeah. So I will start by saying that Chidiebere is firstly a Christian, and secondly, Nigerian. So let's start with that. Because I'm proud to always have a Nigerian wherever I go to. I like,
Yeah.
identifying. Yeah. For me, basically, I grew up in Nigeria in a very remote area, called Uyo. Growing up in a family of I have three siblings. I'm the
Mhm.
second born, and I I grew up in a family where we were basically fizzling through life to find survival and to find
Mhm.
the essence of life, basically. But then, amidst all of this, I found this excitement in creating. I was a creator, so
Mhm.
initially I had this interest. I used to make things. I used to um, things very creative, electrical. I usually like fix a television,
Mhm.
everything electrical. So I kind of like had an interest in fixing things, but I didn't know I was going to be fixing people,
Yeah.
in the medical perspective. And so my brother was like, okay, why not go into engineering because I love constructive work? I said, no, I didn't have interest in joining wires, maybe
Mhm.
joining veins and arteries. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be a great interest for me. But along the line, I realized that I was also a creative person. So I decided to stumble upon a lot of creative things like photography, videography, animations. I was a muralist. I did everything literally creative,
Yeah.
just to exude my creative prowess. And, along the run, I also had an interest for medicine, because um, so when I was a child, my first interest was to be a medical doctor.
Mhm.
But, amidst all the challenges, and I didn't know how to become all of this. So
Yeah.
trying years in, year out, trying the examination to get into medical school was actually difficult. But, I had to put in so much work, to study, to learn, to try so many things. And, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm just going to take a bit of pause.
Well, you
Yeah.
you you talk about how you've always had this creative streak, and you decided to venture more into that and develop that talent. I know you had a natural inclination for it, but were there other opportunities that you took advantage of to really master the art of what you were trying to do?
Relative to medical illustrations or in general
Just in
creative pursuit?
general. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So as I said earlier on, one of the things I did was to learn photography and videography. And for me, the concept of creating things was my passion, seeing how things came to life from nothing, was
Mm-hmm.
my interest. So I think I missed the part where I said I'm a self-taught artist because I had a friend of mine who was an artist.
Wow.
Yes, yeah. So I wasn't.
Interesting.
I was. Yeah, I don't know if I was born with art because some people
Mhm,
grow up, drawing from age 5, from age 6. But for
mhm,
me, that was a curiosity based on I saw my friend drawing, and I was like,
mhm.
okay, I want to do this. For him, it was a thing of purpose for him. But for me, it was like a thing of I think I can do this too. Let me see if I
Right.
can do this too. So at that point, I realized, okay, I can do this. So I started teaching myself how to draw from YouTube videos, learning all the techniques of sketching and all of that. So I realized that I started improving on my art.
Yeah.
Then I started monetizing my skills. I started
Mhm,
creating digital, contemporary art, pencil and paper artworks for people. But then I
mhm,
realized that I think that was in 2020 that I could go into medical illustrations with the skill of this by the help of my mentor.
mhm,
He was like, okay, why not go into medical illustration because you have passion for medicine, you have passion for art. Why not interject both and see what
mhm,
to create? So I was like, okay, fine, I could do this. So I started making research about what it takes to be a medical illustrator.
mhm.
And it was far-fetched because one, I wasn't in medical school, so I didn't know much about medicine. And I
I
didn't know
was
the
gonna
soft.
ask that. I'm like, okay, so you love medicine, you love the arts, you want to integrate both of them, but there's still that foundational knowledge that you need in terms of even, pathophysiology and all of those things that to really bring to light the illustrative piece of what you were trying to bring.
Yes, yeah. And I think that was one thing I needed to really work on,
Hmm.
because the first time I ever picked up an anatomy textbook was the first time I was going to draw something in it,
Hmm.
and I didn't know where to start from because everything was looking very strange, the veins, the arteries.
Yeah.
But for me, the way I saw art was that art is just a way of expression. Whatever works for you may
Hmm.
not work for the other person. So how to find what worked for me as a person. And then I didn't have a laptop then. I didn't have a drawing tablet and anything. So it was a borrowed laptop from my church. And then I used it. Yeah. And I
You
used a
got to be
computer mouse.
resourceful.
Yeah, it has to be no excuses, right?
No excuses.
Yes. Yeah, so I had to like use computer mouse to learn how to draw with a mouse. But
Hmm.
I think in that particular moment, I realized that, oh, this is something I could do. And but on and on, I had to redefine the concept of art for myself.
Right.
And I started improving. I realized that I could do this. I could do this. And every day I always showed up. I learned something new. And on, it's just been a great journey so far.
I love that. And, so I'm thinking about this. You're talking about really getting involved and passionately, you've always been passionate, but intentionally pursuing this as probably a career and also something you could not just monetize but also really bring a lot of awareness to some of the things that have not been really highlighted in the medical field. And so I look at 2020 and I look at 2025, and that's just a span of 5 years, but you've done a lot of work in 5 years. I want you to walk us through how have you been intentional in bringing your skill sets, your passion, your values to the world in such a way that I know you've been doing this for a lifetime, but since you became intentional about medical illustrations, it's been about 5 years, and yet you've achieved a lot in this 5 years that has really pushed you to global preeminence, and I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So I would say the most important thing has been the motive behind what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I say this a lot of times that I never knew I was going to go viral, first of all, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know. And I was never seeking any international attention, right? For me, it was just, I love what I did, and I always showed up every day. And I
Right.
ensured that I was sharing my gift with the world by sharing on social media.
Mm-hmm.
There was no motive to be recognized. And I think that is for me, that's the foundation for success and for
Yeah.
a sustained growth. When there are no ulterior motives to a subject, and there are genuine intentions towards something, it gives you some sense of purpose and direction. And for me, I realized that this was something that I could lose track of time doing. When
Mm-hmm.
I was showing up, I would do this. Um, 5 hours will be gone, and I'm not even feeling. I'm like, you
You're
know,
still engrossed in the
I'm
process.
still engrossed in the process, and it was exciting for me. So from 2020 to 2025, I realized that, oh, okay, I'm not doing this because uh, maybe the world has recognized me for creating something very unique. I'm doing it because it is important that I do this. There are people out there who are depending on what I do. Sometimes you know, when I make my post and I share on social media, I go through the comments and I realize that, okay, before the image went viral, the project went viral rather, I started realizing that this was beyond me, because when
Mm-hmm.
I was creating all of this, I thought it was just, okay, me from Nigeria creating something for the world, which maybe might not be significant, maybe might not change anybody's life. But then when I saw the reaction of people that this was life changing moment for them, I realized that, okay, I was doing something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
So from 2020 to 2025, it's just been the desire to always show up for people. And I think other than the medical illustration, that's
Mm-hmm.
who I am basically. I love being there
Mm-hmm.
for people. I love ensuring that people are okay, even if I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that background, taking that burning desire into the area of medical illustrations or medicine has been
Mm-hmm.
my fuel so far. I think sustainably has kept me going, from 2020 to 2021 and up to 2025. And I bet you never can tell what you never can tell what the future holds, in coming years, it might be bigger than this, but
I know.
yeah,
I
it's,
can't
it's
wait
been
to
great.
see all of it. And that's why I was telling you, I was like, I really want to hear about, like, down the road in our conversation. I really want to hear about what you're looking forward to, because it's just been such a whirlwind of opportunities that have come your way because you have followed your passion, you've been consistent, and you have shown excellence in the work that you're doing. And so now all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but to people, it's all of a sudden. You're on TED Talks and all of these things. Tell me about how those opportunities actually came about, and what was that like for you?
So I think initially when I was introducing myself, I mentioned first that I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my faith has played a pivotal role
Mm-hmm.
in my success from
Yeah.
then to now. I remember when I created the Black British illustration, um, it was, I didn't know it was going to go viral. And I
Mm-hmm.
think then I was about traveling to Ukraine for medical school. So I didn't have money for school and everything. So I did a crowdfunding and, shared on social media. So this is detailed explained in my book, but I
Yeah.
won't go over it. Yeah. And
You can give us snapshots of your
a
book.
snapshot. Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah, sure. So, okay, that was in 2021, around April or so. So
Mm-hmm.
I started crowdfunding. And then I was, trusting God for a miracle, because I didn't have anyone to run to raise tuition and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, we've been taught about seed sowing,
Mm-hmm.
in my church. So I decided, so I raised a couple of money, and then,
Yeah.
but I was trusting God for more. So I spoke to my elder brother, and he was like, "Why not give out all you've raised?" I was like, "All I've raised." I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, okay." But I was
That's a
like,
lot of
okay,
faith.
that's a lot of faith. I mean, now I'm even scared that I took such faith, such move. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm like thinking about, like, I can't imagine I did that.
right.
But I think the morning was that I woke up one morning, I did my morning prayers. I like, okay, God,
Mhm.
I want to do what you said, right? I want to give this money out, but
Yeah,
you need to tell me who I'm going to give it to. So,
yeah,
and he showed me someone to give it to, and I was like, okay, to confirm you're actually saying this, I'm going to church right now, and I want
yeah.
to see this person first in church. So
Mhm.
I saw the person in church. I was like, I gave her everything that, and I did what God said, and on and on. It was exactly 7 days. I mean, before now, I had created the Black Witches illustration like a week before now. So
Yeah.
after 7 days, after taking him to this instruction, the
Mhm.
image went viral,
Wow.
and I, I still didn't realize what was going on. So I had to like
Mhm.
take a step backward and understand what was going on, and but I realized that this was something I couldn't explain to people because it was deeper than myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the image went viral, and the elder brother called me and was like, "Bro, what's going on? Your LinkedIn is on fire and everything." I was like, "I don't know honestly what's going on." And
Yeah.
jokingly, I said, "I think CNN is going to call me." You know,
Oh my God.
yeah. And it wasn't up to like 10 minutes. I got an email from CNN. Oh, we'd like to have an interview with you and
Oh
everything.
my goodness.
Yeah. So I think on and on from there was just
Mhm.
a cycle of God's blessings. I had
Mhm.
my first international travel was to Switzerland, where I did my TED talk. I have
Yeah.
not been on a big podium before,
Yeah.
and I had a great speech. And on and on, I started traveling the world. I started going to places, and
Mhm.
so pretty much that's how it started. And now
Yeah.
I'm just benefiting of God's blessings. Yeah.
And so now you have all of this international exposure, and sometimes it feels like a whirlwind. It's like all of a sudden everyone knows who Chidiebere is. How do you handle that pressure? How do you handle that fame, that recognition? Because it's very easy to get lost into all of it. Sometimes I tell people, sometimes I'm like, I'll go somewhere and then I'll be trying to introduce myself, and people are like, "Yeah, we know you, Dr. Mumba." And I'm like, "Okay, should I know you?" Like, and I'm like, I'm scared. I'm like, "Okay, what do you know about me? Or what have you heard?" Kind of thing, right? But how do you handle all of that fame and attention that comes with such blossoming success?
Yeah. I think for me, it's understanding where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come from everything that was all right and okay. So I realized that um, whatever I have is a blessing and it's a gift. I need to take care of it. So
Mm-hmm.
understanding that, I had to like, keep myself in a place where I can manage all that I've been given. And, there were times where I, it was pretty much very um, difficult because at 2022, 2023, I was, my management team was literally trying to control what I wear, where I go,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, no, I don't want to be that person.
We have an
I just
image and
want
a brand to protect.
to protect. I was like, well, for me, I'm a simple person. I just want to enjoy my
Yeah.
youth, have good connection with people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the good thing is that I've always learned how to, know the things that I need now, the things that are important, and the things that are relevant. And it has kind of like kept me going. Where, for example, let's say I travel, like for example, to let's say, I think one of the trips that I had was I went to Seychelles. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think that was in 2023, just to relax because it's been a really long year.
Right.
And I didn't make any public posts. So I didn't know how the press knew
Yeah.
I was in Seychelles. And they sent an email, oh, would like to come to your hotel to interview. I'm like, oh my God, can I just
I'm just
enjoy
here
this
to relax.
vacation? you know, but momentarily, it's something you understand that it's a blessing. But I think it's just, I understand where I came from and I know how to manage all of this in time and how to not allow it, get, I mean, for me to get lost in everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much that's it.
So you are now the, official illustrator for all of these big journals and, Harvard. I want you to talk to me about how the Harvard opportunity came about and what exactly you're doing with them.
Yeah. So when the image went viral, I had a lot of opportunities. I had a PhD offer. I had,
Mhm,
so many things came up, and one of them was to work with most of these reputable organizations.
mhm,
For the Journal of Global Neurosurgery, I was already working with them before my
mhm.
image went viral.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had to stay committed to where I started from. So I
Mhm.
still want to know where I'll create the resources that they need me to create for them.
Yeah.
But for Harvard Medical School, that was sequel to my image going viral. They reached out and said, okay, we'd like to be part of our team. Let's
Mhm,
build something together. So currently, I had received a grant, but I'm partnering with Harvard Medical School to build um, a digital library,
mm.
which the blueprint is going to be mind blowing. It's going to be mind
That
blowing,
just
and
already sounds amazing.
yeah, the whole concept behind it is in my mind is it's wild. I can't wait to
Mm,
bring to life this year.
yeah.
So that's how we're partnering. That's how we're working. So they provide mentorship. They provide the resources that I need, and the access to people that I need to the relationship I need to grow my career. So
Mhm.
pretty much that's how our relationship is. Yeah.
So you're doing all of these things. They're time consuming, but you're also in medical school. Talk to me about balance and prioritization and all of that stuff. How's that working in your life?
Phew. I need to breathe in first before I answer that because it, I think it's one of the most difficult things that I'm doing or have done in my life because medical school is really really time consuming.
Yeah.
Sometimes like when the year started, I said I was gonna make like at least three illustrations every month of my social
Mhm.
media consumption,
Yeah.
but the narrative has changed because I realized that I'm spending more time trying to study, trying to
Right.
and it's time consuming. But
Mhm.
for me, both things are really important to me. I can't let one suffer. In as
Exactly.
much as my online presence is not really as it should be.
Mhm.
Um, but then at the little break I have, like the Easter holiday, I
Yeah.
quickly had to spend time to create illustration because I realized it's just the little break that I have. So I try to
Yeah.
maximize the smallest of minutes and
Mhm.
hours that I could, or maybe the holidays I have to do
Mhm.
something. And the good thing is that I'm blessed with a good team,
Yeah.
where um, most of the things that I don't have time to handle, I like, okay, guys, do this. I'm
Mhm.
just going to direct you on how to do this,
Yeah.
and so it kind of make the work a bit easy. And in
Mhm.
most cases, and I mean, the good thing is that my medical school is also understanding. Most times I get to travel when there is a
Mhm.
test or there's an
Yeah.
exams. But if I write to my school that I'm traveling, they get to like give me a break, and when I'm returned, they like give me what I missed. So I'm not really in the point where I'm really struggling to find a balance because I have systems that support me to do
Mm.
that. So, but ultimately, it's just been. I think it makes everything interesting, where I get to have something I'm chasing for, have something I'm also trying to find a balance to. But I think altogether, it's good. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Now, I'm a mental health person, so I gotta throw that out there. How do
Yeah.
you take care of your mental health in all of this greatness that you're actually doing?
Yes. I think two things. One, I have people I can have conversations with.
Hmm.
I'm surrounded with great people, my family, my friends. We just have a phone call. We just chat about things that are not necessary, things that are necessary. It's kind of like yeah, makes me unwind about the stress and
Yeah.
everything.
Hmm.
And
People
also
you can just be a human being with,
a
right?
human
I
being with,
find
yeah.
that very, very important, and because sometimes you feel like you're always on, with on the world stage, but it's such a great feeling to have people who you can just be yourself and not have any kind of pressure to do something, say something, or just be goofy, you know?
Right,
So I love that
right.
you have that.
Yeah, and people always say things like, "Chidi, I never knew you could be this playful." Or like, "Come on, I'm human." I,
Yeah.
you know, people think I should always be serious every time. I'm always reading every time, but for me, I love being playful. I love being natural, and I think
Mhm.
that's what has kept me.
Yeah.
And so secondly, I know when to unwind.
Mhm.
I usually play pool. I go to play like the snooker table, the billiard table,
Yeah.
a billiard ball rather. So sometimes I go to play the pool table, with friends, and also play the piano. So for me, it's a way of, you know, putting out the stress, unwinding, and feeling good about myself.
Awesome. Well, I love that you have, strategies to take care of yourself, strategies to unwind, and just be a human being at the end of the day, because that is so important in keeping your mental health. But also, it's very important to sustain your own personal career, because it's very easy to get so engrossed and then you lose yourself in the process, but then that doesn't give you longevity in what you're destined to do as well. So I love that you're doing that. So there's a lot of questions about how diseases present themselves in different ethnicities and all of that. And previously, we've dove into that, but we have not really seen that from medical illustrations. So tell me, why is this so important in the world of science, in the world of medicine, and also in just the world of healthcare in general?
Yes. I think the most important thing that we need to understand is that, because we always hear statistics like less than 4% of images in a medical textbook show Black people.
Right.
Black women are 3 to 4 times likely to die from birth complication than white people, and all of those statistics basically are experiences of people, of
Mhm.
patients, right?
Yeah.
Because we understand that the system has been built to disregard maybe complaints of black
Mhm.
people, or the
Yeah.
systems have been built to um, build this gap in communication between the patient and the
Mhm.
doctor.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is, for me, I see medical illustration as a bridge between
Mhm.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
as from my perspective, and we've had cases where patients were misdiagnosed, right?
Mhm.
Where patients were not treated properly. For example, I create a lot of images around skin conditions.
Mhm.
Recently there's been a measles outbreak,
Right.
and most times the GPs do not know what it represents on Black people,
Mhm.
because the skin types, sometimes it's difficult to see the rashes based on how it represents the erythema. It's
Mhm.
not obvious on Black
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
But most times, the resources that medical students, GP, doctors are actually being trained with are
Mhm.
resources that show these conditions on white people. And that
Right.
alone has caused a dichotomy, has caused that big gap in communication, where
Yeah.
I'm only thinking of this on white people. But then when I see them, like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to diagnose this. Now that leads
Yeah.
to misdiagnosis. So
Mhm.
missing a diagnosis can lead to decreasing healthcare outcomes and worsening the healthcare outcome, and can
Mhm.
also breach the trust between the patient and the doctor. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of diversifying medical
Mhm.
illustrations, and
Yeah.
that is also diversifying medical education, because
Mhm.
back in time, to the history of medicine, illustrations, everything was all white centered. it,
Mhm.
it could have been an intentional approach. It could have been a subconscious approach where everything was white and nobody ever thought about how about other populations that are not white. So it
Mhm.
has, from generation, that perspective has been passed down. So everything that is not white is not
Mhm.
real. That
Mhm.
concept has been passed around, and some sort of medical cliche, where, for
Mhm.
example, people, I think in 2013, some medical students were asked, what they perceive about black patients, and they said, Black people don't have nerve endings that are sensitive to pain, so they have
Mm-hmm.
high tolerance for pain than white people. And
Right.
this was a very critical research, where
Mm-hmm.
people, had some sort of, um, implicit bias towards certain population. And that is
Mm-hmm.
to say that diversifying medical illustration, not just only um, create this direct illustration and all of that, but
Yeah.
educate people around things that they are missing. Because
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize something is missing until you've seen it, right? Until you know that, oh, I never thought of, and that was the unique thing about my illustration, because for years they've never been an illustration of a black fetus and a
Mm-hmm.
black mother. Because I
Right.
mean, it's kind of led to a big conversation in medicine. People started saying things, can a fetus really be black? Because people always thinking of, it's always a white fetus in the
Right.
uterus. Fetus are
Right.
never black. They are
Yeah.
always white.
Mm-hmm.
you know, I started doubting my creativity, but I realized that I had to make a deep research to educate people. So then
Yeah.
I started a series called Some Babies Are Born Black. It was a series to educate people that,
I
okay,
like
you might,
that title.
yeah, I think I'm going to start over again to like change that narrative again.
Yeah.
People started understanding, oh yeah, some babies are born black because I had to bring the life scenario of a patient who was in South Sudan, which
Mm,
environmental factor, genetics play a key factor in a baby's skin coloration right from the
right.
uterus. So not
Mm-hmm.
everything is white. So this is why we need to diversify illustration to teach people that there are different shades, there are different races, and everything that is not white, right, can also
Mm-hmm.
be real. So
Right.
that's basically being the importance of these illustrations, and
Mm-hmm.
I think one other thing is to ensure that medical students are trained properly. Because one thing I always think about is because I think in 2023, medical students in Nigeria were asked, "What does heat rash look
Mm,
like on black skin?" They said it
yeah.
looked ready on no black skin, and
Mm,
this um, I mean, it was really sad because our
yeah.
patients are predominantly black people, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm a medical student in Zambia right now, the Copperbelt
Mm-hmm.
University, and
Yeah.
most of our resources, we do programs in pathology, and it just start to realize that every program we do, every module we do, are all images on white people, but our patients are predominantly black people. So
Black
this
people.
now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're not training medical students to misdiagnose, training medical students to not be confident in offering healthcare services to the population. So it is very important to diversify medical illustrations.
Absolutely. And you're so right in terms of if you've always seen it one way and a patient presents in your clinic, in your hospital with a slightly different presentation than what you've seen in textbooks, it's very easy to miss that diagnosis. And then the trajectory of that patient, the prognosis just becomes worse because there's poor diagnosis, then there's going to be poor treatment outcomes because probably they're going to treat something that is not even what it's supposed to be, or is
Right.
going to lead to late diagnosis to where you could have done something to cure this condition or to treat this condition, and now the severity of the symptoms are so much that you maybe now just have to deal with the sequelae and all of that stuff. So I completely agree with you. And something that I has really come into the light recently, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, even like the accuracy of pulse oximetry on Black people. There's been a whole lot of research that has been done on this topic and how pulse oximetry as we knew it was not really accurate on
Right.
Black people. And people were always wondering why Black people were deteriorating at a faster rate when their clinical presentation was not correlating with what was actually happening. And so
Right.
I told you I wasn't feeling well a couple weeks ago, and I went to the ED and my oxygen saturation was like 84. And then in my head, I'm like, wait, is this 84, 84? Am I like 79 right now? Am I like seven? Am I dying? What's going on? So I really I think that we have to be careful and we have to be intentional in how we present this, especially and especially incorporating it into our medical schools, like you said. It's so
Yeah.
important, because then we're training physicians and practitioners and providers who are able to deal with diverse populations, because I mean the world has become so global, and you see all kinds of things every day, so you have to be able to look at ethnicity and presentation in different types of people. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing. So talking
Thank
about
you.
Zambia, I was we're having a conversation before we went live, and you're like, I'm actually in Zambia right now. And I'm like, I'm from Zambia. So tell me, how did you end up at Copperbelt University?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I didn't know you were Zambian until you mentioned. Uh, yeah, but I should have a bit tell from the accent because there's a bit of accent there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I think that was in before, I mean, shortly after because I was supposed to be in Ukraine when the
Mm-hmm.
war started. So, I mean, I was like a week to travel and the war
Yeah.
started and everything. So it was kind of like a layback in my progress in medical school. So, and I didn't have the wait to, the time to wait, and time was of the essence for me. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm because from my network, I had good friends from different regions of the world. So I was in conversation with one of my friends. He was like, "Okay, why not come to Zambia?" I was like, "Oh, Zambia, okay, okay, that makes sense." I mean, I was like, "Okay." It was like, "Yeah, I should apply." I was like, "Okay, fine, sure, I should." Then I applied.
Yeah.
I got in, and for me, I think it was just it's really exciting because I love it here.
Yeah.
I'm so productive. The things I learn here are just. I feel like I should go into the theater already to just carry out a Caesarean section,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is. It is. I think that's pretty much how I got to Zambia, but I'm really enjoying my stay here.
I grew up on the Copper Belt, so I've lived in Kitwe, I've lived in Dola, I've lived in Luanshya, so I'm a Coppola girl through and through. Even
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the last few years before I moved to the US, I was in Lusaka, but I can't even speak proper Nyanja to save myself.
Oh,
I'm a Bemba throughout, so
it's,
I'm really excited that you're enjoying yourself in Zambia. So tell me, why gynecology and obstetrics?
yes. I think initially I had an interest for neurosurgery, and if you
Mhm.
look at my bit of my bio, there was something read regarding neurosurgery.
Exactly.
Um, Yes, but then I realized I started redefining my path, and which I think is the most important thing about growth. You need to find time to redefine your path.
Mhm.
So I started redefining my path, and I realized that deep down I had an interest for women healthcare and for children healthcare. To ensure that their well-being is fine. I think at the age of maybe 12,
Mhm.
12, 15, I started watching cesarean section videos, and
Mhm.
I didn't know what they were, but it was exciting for me. I started memorizing all the procedures, the name, the facials, and all of that. So it
Yeah.
was just recently I started thinking, well, like, oh my god, I started doing all of this way back before I ever had an interest in medicine, you
Yeah.
know. And I realized that, and also one thing is that when I lost my mom to ovarian cancer,
Mm.
I told myself that I was going to be a doctor to ensure that women do not go through similar experience. Because one of the reasons why she died was because the diagnosis was being mixed, right?
Mhm.
The On the scan, nothing was showing, and it was just a very terrible experience. So,
I'm sorry
and
about
oh, thank you so much.
that.
And
Mhm.
I said to myself, I was going to ensure that nobody goes through the similar experience that I went through. So I think that's why I said, okay, I'm going to be a gynecologist, and unconsciously my illustration is kind of like tilt to women healthcare. I always do a
Right.
lot of arts around women healthcare, a bit of dermatology, but
Yeah.
women healthcare has really been my priority. So yeah, I think that's pretty much why. Yeah.
Awesome. So where do you see yourself going? 5 years, 10 years. What does the future hold for Chidiebere?
Um, well, 5 years from now, the most important thing is that I should be doing residency by then,
Mm-hmm.
in gynecology.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, 5 years from now, I'm thinking of diversifying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not in very extreme cases. Like as I said earlier on, I'm a creative. I love building things in my mind. So
Yeah.
I want to start. I want to diversify into business.
Okay.
And I know it sounds a bit, I don't know, but yeah, I
It
think
sounds good to me.
that
What
yeah,
people are talking about multiple streams of income these days. You gotta diversify, you gotta
yeah.
monetize your gifts and talents and all of that stuff. You gotta learn to do multiple things.
Yes, yeah, and I had this idea to build an e-commerce platform, which the
Hmm.
idea I haven't seen it anywhere, so it is
Yeah.
still fresh in my mind, and
Hmm.
I've started working on it.
Yeah.
But it's a long-term goal. So, but
Mhm.
that'll be out in, I don't know when I'm looking at, but it's going to be a long-term project. Then,
Yeah.
secondly, one of the things I also want to do in the next couple of 5 years and maybe 5, 10 years is to start a creative company. I
Hmm.
realized that I'm not just a creative, but I know how to manage creativity. I know how to sell. Okay, I know how to spot the tightness of detail and to find a better route to it. So I realized that I have that managerial skill for
Hmm.
creativity.
Yeah.
So I want to see how to bring people together, creative, and give them a voice globally, and particularly Africans, give them a
Mm.
global voice and global relevance. So
Yeah.
I think pretty much that's how I, what I expect in the next 5 years. And also, I'm also a very spontaneous person. So as the year unravels, as the year comes, I know
Right.
more ideas going to come, things to do. So I'm
Yeah.
open for that spontaneity.
Yeah. So you somebody mentioned, I think it's Ndasi Nobisi mentioned in the comments, Dr. Esene should be very proud of you. Tell me about that.
He is my mentor, and he's always calling me Chidi. I see what you're doing. I'm so proud of you. He's always saying things. He taught me how to distinguish things that are good and things that
Hmm.
I need urgently.
Yeah.
He's always. I think we've known ourselves for like maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But the first time we met in person was just last year when he came to Lusaka, and I was
Oh,
like, I need to fly to Lusaka to see him because I have never seen him before, you
mhm.
know. And he's been a big blessing to my life. He's been very inspirational. And I know he's a neurosurgeon. He's
Mhm.
doing his thing, but his lifestyle really, encourages me to always push forward and to
Mhm.
always, use the small things to do great things, and that's what he's so
Yeah.
good at doing.
Awesome. I just love the influence of good mentors. They can really make a difference in our lives, in the way we see ourselves, in the way that we push ourselves. So I love that you have someone who does that for you as well. And I know you talk a little bit about this creative company that you want to create to manage other creatives and young people in Africa. But what are you doing to mentor others outside of the management piece, to mentor others who may have similar interests or are really looking to put their gifts on the global stage in a way that you have done successfully? Are there any people you're specifically mentoring or investing in?
Yes, very important. I think I missed that. So I started um, a training session on campus. So what I
Hmm.
did was that I brought a friend of mine who is also a graphic designer and another one who is a writer.
Yeah.
So we decided to host an event and to train medical students. We
Mm.
started with medical students because we realized that we needed to give medical students a life outside medicine,
Yeah.
to allow them think out of in their creative space. So we organized a training session for medical illustration, graphic design, and writing. You
Hmm.
know, and on and on, we've seen people we've trained who they've been
Hmm.
doing pretty much well,
Yeah.
and they've learned the concept behind all of this, and they're doing well. On the side, I have people who come to my DM and say, okay, I'm working on this. Oh, how do you see this? And I'm going to correct them. No, no, this color is wrong. Do
Yeah.
this and do that and do that. So
Hmm.
I have been mentoring people on the side. And also, I think also what I do every year is I usually organize the medical sip and paint. So it is just a creative way of allowing people to
Nice.
do something medical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that relates to advocacy,
Yeah.
and also something creative. So we've
Mm.
seen medical students who did amazing artworks, and yeah, I mean, it was just great to see how people. For me, that is a way of mentorship because on and
Yeah.
on, people have identified that, oh, I have an interest, I have a thing for art, for me to be able to create something like this. So they started doing something, So
Mm-hmm.
directly, I have people who I'm mentoring,
Yeah.
and in like the broad scheme of things, people who just learn from me from a distance, But yeah,
Exactly.
ultimately, there are people who are actually learning from me.
I love that. I truly love that. So life, of course, you've shared a little bit about some of the challenges growing up and things like that, coming from humble beginnings. But life is a continuous journey of challenges and wins and all of those things. What are some other challenges that you feel you have overcome, especially maybe in your professional life? And what are some strategies that have allowed you to overcome those challenges that you faced?
Yes, I think I'm just gonna be very um, honest, if that's
Yeah.
the word. Yeah. So growing up, I don't know if it's an African thing,
Yeah.
majority of Africans, about 70%, have this inferiority complex. I don't know because of
Mhm.
environment, we felt
Yeah.
less of ourselves and everything. So
Mhm.
I grew up having this inferiority complex.
Mm.
I felt I wasn't enough. I felt
Right.
I felt like everything I had in my life, I didn't deserve it.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
was just a bad place to be in. But
Mhm.
then I realized that no, I really worked hard, and everything
Mm.
I have is what I deserve. There is an icing on the cake, right, which is the grace of
Yes.
God, right.
Yeah.
But then underneath are the foundation of work that I have done. So
Mhm.
I have struggled with that so much, but
Mhm.
it took a lot of work to bring myself out of that position. And it will intrigue you to know that I was born a stutterer, a very chronic stutterer. I
Really?
couldn't, yes, I couldn't put my
Wow.
words together. I couldn't have good conversations. It was so bad,
I
you
would have
know.
never noticed.
Nah, you would never. You would never. So it was so bad. It was so
Mhm.
bad. So for me, it was a challenge because I know I had this. I mean, years back, I had this thing for talking to people. So I usually like in my room talk to people, like as if I'm, having conversation with people and everything. So, but then I realized, oh, I'm just a stammerer. Of course,
Yeah.
this is not going to go anywhere. I had times where people told me, okay, there was this time where I was given like a president of the teens community in my
Mhm.
church. And
Yeah.
someone was like, "You're a stammerer, how are you gonna manage talking to people?" I was like, "Oh my God." Oh my
Yeah.
God. So, but then it was a challenge for me, and that relates to my professional life too, because now
Mhm.
I've been on stages where I
Yes.
have to speak to crowd, have to like
Exactly.
hold conversations.
Mhm.
But then I realized that I've just been doing it so good.
Mhm.
And also one of the challenges I would say is, while growing up, I had this perfectionist tendency. I,
Mhm.
I, I think once in a while it just show up.
Perfectionism can kill us. You and me both. Like I'm such a perfectionist and I want things to be right all the time. But sometimes it doesn't always have to be 1,000%.
Right. And to be honest with you, when I created that Black Faces illustration,
Yeah.
I did not like it. I didn't like
Yeah.
it. I was like, no, the lines are not correct. The color here is not correct. Everything wasn't just. But then I think for now it's the most beautiful thing that I see. I look at it, I can't imagine I created this.
Right.
So yeah, so I had to like deal with that. Art is not about perfection. Art is about expression.
Right.
When you can express it and people can feel it, that's all what matters. So, and
Yeah.
I've seen artwork that were not really beautiful, with just scribblings, sold
Yeah.
for thousands of dollars. So
Look, I'm not an artist, but sometimes I ask myself, I'm like, maybe I just don't have an artist eye, but like, what is this? I'm
yeah,
like, what is this?
that's the beautiful thing about art. It speaks differently to different people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there is no perfectionism in art. So I had to really deal with that challenge in my life. And also another thing was while learning illustrations, I realized that there were not much resources to bacon on.
Mm,
I had to rely on mentorship to say,
mm,
okay, oh, how do I fix this? Because if I also create an image of, let's say, for example, psoriasis, for example, how it looks like on black people, but
right.
then on the internet, there is no image of psoriasis. What do I
Mm,
pay a reference to?
yeah.
It was really difficult. So how to like teach myself, how to, I had to like do like deep research,
Mm,
and I had to creatively think of how to represent this,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes it may be a wrong representation, sometimes it may be, the tone wasn't correct,
Yeah.
but it was a big challenge, but I was able to overcome that, thankfully now there are a lot of research coming out now and there's something to rely on to look for good references,
Yeah.
so I think pretty much those are like few challenges that I can think of all the top of my head, that I've
Right.
been able to overcome. And yeah.
Well, thank you for being honest with us about all the different challenges. And I think one of the things that I can definitely say is I think it's a cultural thing in Africa where I think there's several meanings of humility, but in Africa, the meaning of humility is you don't talk about yourself.
Mm.
You don't toot your own horn and all of this stuff. And that's something that I struggled with when I first moved to the US was, in Africa, at least in Zambia, when I grew up, if you're like the smart kid in the class, like you were quiet and you waited for the teacher to point you out, and you come and solve the equation on the board or whatever. And then I come to the US and people are just talking freely. People sometimes
Freely.
they'll be giving a wrong opinion, but they'll be talking. And I'm like, this is such a foreign concept to me. And so that was something that I really had to adjust to in terms of finding my voice and knowing that I didn't have to be quiet. And there were many ways to express humility than not to talk about yourself or things like that. And humility is an attitude, not necessarily just what you're saying or things like that, because there can be forced humility too, where we just over exaggerate everything. Like you said, at the end of the day, we understand that God plays a big part in our lives, and his favor and grace and mercy and all of those things are very important. But we cannot also take away the fact that every day you wake up and perfect your craft and you perfect your skills and you do the reading and you do all of that. And, God blesses the works of your hands. If you don't have the works of your hands, there's nothing to bless, kind of thing.
Right.
And so all of those things are very important, and that's something that I had to really grow out of to make sure that I was representing myself in a light that was accurate, not boastful, but really illustrated the fact that I recognize God is in the midst of everything I'm doing, but I'm also doing a lot of work to really create the environment to be successful. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. So I can't believe we've been talking for almost an hour. So as we get ready to wind down, I just want you to share with our audience what are some pearls of wisdom that you would love to leave with our audience in terms of some things that have helped you maintain your success or be successful and just navigate life in the way that you have.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I would say there are like a couple of few things that have really helped me. First of all, I had to develop a vertical and horizontal relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means that vertical is that you and your maker, you have to
Mm-hmm.
develop a relationship with God, and that is the most important thing,
Mm-hmm.
and because we are created to fulfill God's divine purpose here on this earth. And
Mm-hmm.
out of the source, out of all of everything, we cannot fulfill God's purpose here on earth. So for me, what
Mm-hmm.
has really helped me is that I stay rooted in my source. So I
Mm-hmm.
developed a relationship with God. Secondly, I developed a horizontal relationship that is with mankind. Because the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that God is going to use people to bless
Right.
you, is going to use
Mm-hmm.
people to help you. And so
Exactly.
therefore, nobody really grows in isolation. We all need people in our lives.
Exactly.
I hear people say things, I don't need anybody, I'm okay myself. Well, are you really sure about that? No, I don't think
There,
so.
and the whole concept of self-made. I'm like, even if somebody worked 90% to do what they've said they've done, there's that 10% of someone somewhere really coming into the picture and
Yes,
helping them.
of course, of course, very important, very important. So, um, those are like one thing that's helped me to developing the heart of gratitude. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not just a thing of faith; it's a thing of life.
Yes.
Because people, we need to understand that we've been given a gift. Life is a gift itself. So every day
Mm-hmm.
we wake up, we need to be grateful for the things that we have, the things that are yet to come,
Yeah.
and because gratitude makes sense of the past and give grace for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to understand all of that. So, and when we're grateful for everything. So for me, I'm a very grateful person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's ever been a time where I was, not content. There is room for contentment, but there's room for pushing for something. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, this has been like foundational to my life. Gratitude has
Yeah.
been one of the most foundational things in my life. And also another thing would be is to remain true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have in the chaotic world like this, people are busy, people are running around, people
Yeah.
are uh, it's a noisy world, and the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing it could be, or it could be, is to be authentic and to be true to yourself,
Yeah.
because that is your identity. So for me, that has really helped me to navigate through life, ensuring that, oh, I'm true to myself. Like, wherever I travel around the world, I never
Yeah.
lose sight of where I started from. That has really helped me,
Mm-hmm.
in success. I think there's this thing I learned something. Um, I learned this quote, not a quote, but a statement that when things are going good for you,
Mm-hmm.
remain humble, right? When things are going good for you, uh, remain humble. And I
Yeah.
think it was Mike Tyson that said this too. He said, "When God blesses you, the devil is coming for you." And
Absolutely.
it was it was crazy. I mean, there are
Yes.
things I can't say on camera right now, things that
Yeah.
I've experienced in my little life, but
Exactly.
it is really true. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important to remain authentic wherever you go to as life progresses.
Right.
Remain true to yourself and to your identity,
Mm-hmm.
and also it's important to embrace learning.
Mm-hmm.
We are an ever learning, evolving creature, and it's
Yeah.
important to always remember that as life, vacillate, as we move through life, it's
Mm-hmm.
important to know that we need to learn to adjust.
You have to
Now
be
AI
a
is
lifelong
happening.
learner.
Yeah, keep learning, relearning, or learning everything that has to do with learn. Just do it.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and it makes you a better student of life.
Mm-hmm.
And also the most important and the last thing I would say is to uh, cultivate the desire to be resilient, because
Mm-hmm.
that is very important, because life is a hustle and bustle. Everybody's trying
Yeah.
to grow, everybody's trying to rise. Sometimes people push people down along the way of life. But
Yeah.
then the most important thing is you are your greatest supporter. So you need to
Yeah.
encourage that, be that, you need to be that thing of resilience. For me, when I was going to medical school, I had times where my family said, "Okay, you are on your own. We're not going to sponsor you. You are just on your own in this journey." But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I realized this is something I hold dear to my heart, and
Yeah.
people don't understand how it feels to me, but it's my journey. So I have to
Exactly.
cultivate that resilience to say, "Okay, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do this either way. I'm going to push either way. I'm going to
Yeah.
become everything God wants me to become."
Mm-hmm.
So, and all of that, I just kept pushing and growing, and
Mm-hmm.
I think all of this in compass has been like the bedrock to my success.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just like to say that, well, you haven't seen, God is not done with me yet, so you haven't seen it all yet.
I am still waiting to see what the future holds. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
I really, really appreciate your time here with us. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I can't wait to see what else you put into this world, and I can't wait for the digital library to come out. I can't wait for the creative company. So you should know you have a big fan. in me, and I'm always here to support and just even help highlight more. Not that you need it, but help highlight more. But I think that your story is definitely inspirational to a lot of our audiences, and to see you thriving in the way that you are is inspirational to other people as well. So thank you for taking the time. And for everybody that joined us or is going to watch this episode later, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you at our next Fireside Chat in May. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.